Every Christmas Eve for 19 years, a single, unmarked gift appeared under the town's community tree, always addressed to whichever child in town had lost a parent that year. Nobody ever saw who left it. Nobody ever had to ask twice who it was for. The tradition began, though nobody realized it was a tradition yet, in 2005, the year 7-year-old Casey Whitfield lost her father to a heart attack 3 weeks before Christmas. The town of Millbrook was small enough that everyone knew, the kind of place where grief traveled through the grocery store and the post office before it even made it into the local paper. On the morning of December 24th, beneath the enormous blue spruce the town erected every year in the square, a single wrapped gift sat apart from the pile of donated presents the community center collected for families in need. This one had no tag identifying a charity drive, no volunteers' handwriting on the label. Just a small card that read simply, "For Casey, your dad would be proud of you. Love always finds a way to stay." Inside was a telescope, a good one, not a toy, and a note tucked into the box explaining, in careful handwriting, that Casey's father had once mentioned to a stranger, in passing, years earlier, how much his daughter loved looking at stars. Nobody in town could figure out who the stranger might have been. Casey's mother, when asked, had no idea who might have known that detail, let alone remembered it years later, let alone acted on it with this kind of precision. The following December, it happened again, a different child, a different loss, a gift that showed an almost impossible level of specific, personal knowledge about a grieving family nobody outside their closest circle should have known that well. By the 5th year, the town had started calling it the spruce gift, half out of curiosity, half out of the particular reverence small towns develop for things they can't explain, but have decided to protect rather than solve. Deputy Sheriff Ray Alvarez, new to Millbrook in year 7, initially treated it like any unsolved case worth looking into, reviewing security footage from the hardware store across the square, interviewing shop owners about unusual purchases, cross-referencing local craft store receipts against the handwriting style on each year's card. He found nothing, not a single lead, not a single frame of usable footage, not one witness who'd seen anyone approach the tree between the town's Christmas Eve carnival closing at 10 and the gift's discovery each morning at dawn. "It's like they know exactly where every camera in this town points," he told his wife one December, only half joking. "Like they've been planning it for years." He wasn't wrong, though he didn't know that yet. It was year 12 when Ray's own daughter, Priya, then 11 years old, lost her mother, Ray's wife, to cancer after a 2-year fight the whole town had watched unfold, with the particular helpless tenderness small towns reserve for their own. That Christmas Eve, Ray found himself standing in the square at midnight, unable to sleep, watching the tree the way half the grieving parents in town apparently had before him, wondering if this year, his year, would be the one where the mystery finally touched his own family. At dawn, there it was, a gift addressed to Priya, containing a beautifully bound sketchbook and a set of professional-grade colored pencils, along with a note, "For Priya. Your mom told me once that you draw the way she used to breathe, like it kept you alive. Keep breathing, sweetheart." Ray sat down hard on the cold park bench, the gift in his lap, running through every conversation his late wife had ever had in this town, trying to place who she might have told that specific, private detail to. It took him another year, and access to records he probably shouldn't have used his badge to pull, to finally trace it, not through security footage, but through something simpler he'd overlooked the whole time. Hospice records. Every family who'd received the gift, over 12 years, had, at some point during their loss, spent time with the same hospice volunteer, a quiet, unassuming woman named Elena Voss, who'd been visiting Millbrook's dying and grieving for over 2 decades, sitting with families in their final weeks, listening in the particular way that made people tell her things they hadn't told anyone else. Ray found her at the assisted living facility 2 towns over, retired now from hospice work, her hands trembling slightly with early Parkinson's, though her eyes were still sharp. "You knew," he said, not quite a question, standing in her doorway with his badge still in his pocket, unused, because this had stopped being an investigation the moment he understood what it actually was. Elena didn't deny it. She simply gestured for him to sit, the way she must have done with 100 grieving families before him. "People tell you things at the end," she said quietly, "small things mostly, what their kids love, What scares them about leaving them behind, what they wish they'd had more time to give them. I used to just listen for years because that's what the job was. She looked down at her hands. Then my own husband passed, right around the time I retired, and I found myself with all these small, precious details rattling around in my head with nowhere to put them. Details people had trusted me with that felt too important to just let fade. So you started giving them somewhere to go. I couldn't save anyone, Elena said. I sat with more death than any one person should. But I could remember, and it turned out remembering, given somewhere to land, could still look a little bit like love, even after the person giving it was gone. 19 years, Ray said. You've been doing this alone every single year for 19 years. Someone had to keep the promise, Elena said simply. All those people at the end worried so much about what their kids would remember of them, whether love could really survive them leaving. I couldn't promise them forever. But I could promise them one more year, and then the year after that, and I suppose I just never found the right moment to stop. Ray didn't report what he'd found. He didn't tell the town. He simply started helping, quietly, anonymously, taking over the physical task of placing the gifts as Elena's hands grew less steady, while she continued supplying the details, the memories, the small precious pieces of every family's grief that only she had ever been trusted to carry. The tradition continued for 6 more years after that, long after Elena's own passing, which the town mourned without ever connecting her quiet hospice work to the mystery under the tree, because Ray had made a promise of his own by then, the same kind Elena had made 19 years earlier, to keep something small and important going for exactly as long as it was needed, without ever needing credit for carrying it. The card under the tree still reads the same simple line every December, in handwriting that has quietly changed hands twice now without anyone in town ever noticing the difference. Love always finds a way to stay.